years ago, if someone had told you that you would be campaigning with Liz Cheney, what would you have said to them?
That'd be great.
Bruh.
That's really diplomatic.
What kind of gun do you own, and when and why did you get it?
I have a Glock,
Bruh.
and I've had it for quite some time.
Welcome everyone back to Wrestling with Politics. My name is Joel Perez, and today we're going to be breaking down Kamala Harris's recent 60 Minutes interview with Bill Whitaker. Now, Kamala Harris did not do very well in this interview. Bill Whitaker came to this interview very prepared, and quite frankly, in my opinion, he dismantled Kamala Harris in a way that many journalists wouldn't even dare. And he asked some tough questions, some great follow-up questions as well, to the point where by the end of this interview, Kamala Harris did not want to be in the room. She wanted to get out of there by any means necessary. But don't worry, because the editing team had her back. And this 60 Minutes interview, which that's the whole name of the show, only ended up being about 20 minutes long. So that's the whole problem with Kamala Harris. How is there a person running for president who can't even answer an hour-long interview? She can't even do it. And that's the exact problem with Kamala Harris. She can't handle this. She's not prepared for these interviews. She can't handle the tough questions, and she can't have a natural conversation, an unedited conversation. She just can't do it. She's not up to the task. And the more and more that you see these interviews come out, you're just gonna come to realize that. But for now, let's get straight into this 60 Minutes interview, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about.
The events of the past few weeks have pushed us to the brink, if not into, an all-out regional war in the Middle East. What can the U.S. do at this point to stop this from spinning out of control?
Well, let's start with October 7. 1,200 people were massacred. 250 hostages were taken, including Americans. Women were brutally raped. And as I said then, I maintain Israel has a right to defend itself. We would. And how it does so matters. Far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed. This war has to end.
But we supply Israel with billions of dollars in military aid. And yet Prime Minister Netanyahu seems to be charting his own course. The Biden-Harris administration has pressed him to agree to a ceasefire. He's resisted. You urged him not to go into Lebanon. He went in anyway. Does the U.S. have no sway over Prime Minister Netanyahu?
The work that we do diplomatically with the leadership of Israel is an ongoing pursuit around making clear our principles.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
We are not going to stop pursuing what is necessary for the United States to be clear about where we stand on the need for this war to end.
Do we have a real close ally in Prime Minister Netanyahu?
I think, with all due respect, the better question is, do we have an important alliance between the American people and the Israeli people? And the answer to that question is yes.
And right from the beginning of this interview, Kamala Harris comes out speaking on both sides of her mouth and lying, most importantly, about Israel and Gaza. And I just have to point out, this interview is so poorly edited that at points, Kamala Harris sounds like an AI robot. And literally at one point in the interview, they edit her to say the exact opposite thing. Like, she literally contradicts herself on Israel and Gaza. She says that Israel has the right to defend itself, and literally right after that, she says that Palestinians shouldn't be dying. Well, what do you think, bird brain, is gonna happen if Israel defends itself? They're gonna kill Palestinians, they're gonna put people in hospitals, they're gonna kill journalists. And this interviewer, he points that out to Kamala Harris, that Bibi Netanyahu has literally been ignoring everything that the Biden and Harris administration have been trying to say to him, that Israel has full control over America. And Kamala Harris just says that, well, Israel has the right to defend itself. What are you gonna do? Well, we've been sending $18 billion to Israel, and Kamala Harris could be withholding that funding. And I bet you that Israel would be listening real quick if she did that, but she won't do any of that because she's completely bought and sold. And that's the exact point that we're going to continue to cover in this interview. Let's continue to go through it here.
And
While the war in the Middle East has dominated recent headlines, it's the economy that most concerns American voters this election year, as always. There are lots of signs that the American economy is doing very well. Better than most countries, I think. But the American people don't seem to be feeling it. Groceries are 25% higher, and people are blaming you and Joe Biden for that. Are they wrong?
we now have historic low unemployment in America among all groups of people. We now have an economy that is thriving by all macroeconomic measures. And to your point, prices are still too high. And I know that, and we need to deal with it, which is why part of my plan, you mentioned groceries. Part of my plan is what we must do to bring down the price of groceries.
Harris says she'll press Congress to pass a federal ban on price gouging for food and groceries, but details are yet to be defined.
And when asked about the economy, Kamala Harris literally tells you to ignore the evidence of your own eyes and ears here. And she tells you that the unemployment numbers are down and that, the economy is great. Well, it's not feeling so great for us average everyday Americans. And we're not going to ignore the evidence of the own eyes and ears. We're feeling the impact in our wallets. And Kamala Harris, she's decided to all of a sudden become so interested in this conversation. She does admit that grocery prices have gone up in this interview, but this is something that you're all of a sudden concerned about now, when since 2020, during Kamala Harris's administration, grocery prices have gone up 25%, and Kamala Harris is the vice president right now. Why can't she get on the phone with Joe Biden and sort this out? Let's get these grocery prices down right now. Why do we have to wait until after the election? Why do we have to give Kamala Harris our vote before she actually does anything when she's literally in power right now? And she's been in power for the past 4 years, and now all of a sudden she seems to have all these great ideas about how to solve the economy. Where were these ideas for the past 4 years? Because your administration hasn't been able to solve any of these problems. And as a matter of fact, all of these problems have only gotten worse.
A quarter of registered voters still say they don't know you. They don't know what makes you tick. And why do you think that is? What's the disconnect?
It's an election bill. And I take it seriously that I have to earn everyone's vote. This is an election for President of the United States. No one should be able to take for granted that they can just declare themselves a candidate and automatically receive support. You have to earn it. And that's what I intend to do.
You have to earn it, says the one who was chosen by Democratic elites, skipped the primary process, and hasn't gotten a single person to vote for her.
They say that the reason so many voters don't know you is that you have changed your position on so many things. You were against fracking, now you're for it. You supported looser immigration policies, now you're tightening them up. You were for Medicare for all, now you're not. So many that people don't truly know what you believe or what you stand for, and I know you've heard that.
In the last 4 years, I have been Vice President of the United States, and I have been traveling our country, and I have been listening to folks and seeking what is possible in terms of common ground. I believe in building consensus. We are a diverse people, geographically, regionally, in terms of where we are in our backgrounds. And what the American people do want is that we have leaders who can build consensus, where we can figure out compromise and understand it's not a bad thing as long as you don't compromise your values.
The interviewer in this part asked Kamala Harris straight to her face why she's been on every side of every issue for longer than we can count. and that's obvious, is because Kamala Harris is a tool of the deep state, and her only values are building more war, making sure that Americans are more miserable, and ensuring the domination of transnational elites and the top 1%. And we're going to continue to say that at any opportunity that we can get, because Kamala Harris, she is in favor of censorship. She is in favor of sending your taxpayer dollars overseas, and she is in favor of less freedom. And that's what we've seen for the past 4 years during the Biden-Harris administration. We've seen what full control of the deep state looks like. And that's going to continue if Kamala Harris becomes president. She completely dodges this important question from the interviewer. She has no explanation for why she's flip-flopped on all these issues. And instead, she just goes into some vague word salad talking about building consensus and how voters care about a common sense candidate. But she's not able to tell you what that consensus is, and she's not able to find the common ground, because my common ground, for sure, is not war.
But one issue that has proven impervious to compromise is immigration. Over the past 4 years, the Biden-Harris approach has been inconsistent, and Republicans are convinced immigration is the vice president's Achilles heel. You recently visited the southern border and embraced President Biden's recent crackdown on asylum seekers. And that crackdown produced an almost immediate and dramatic decrease in the number of border crossings. If that's the right answer now, why didn't your administration take those steps in 2021?
The first bill we proposed to Congress was to fix our broken immigration system, knowing that if you want to actually fix it, we need Congress to act. It was not taken up. Fast forward to a moment when a bipartisan group of members of the United States Senate, including one of the most conservative members of the United States Senate, got together, came up with a border security bill. Well, guess what happened? Donald Trump got word that this bill was afoot and could be passed, and he wants to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. So he told his buddies in Congress, kill the bill, don't let it move forward.
But I've been covering the border for years. And so I know this is not a problem that started with your administration.
Correct.
But there was an historic flood of undocumented immigrants coming across the border the first 3 years of your administration. As a matter of fact, arrivals quadrupled from the last year of President Trump. Was it a mistake to loosen the immigration policies as much as you did?
It's a long-standing problem, and solutions are at hand. And from day one, literally, we have been offering solutions.
What I was asking was it a mistake to kind of allow that flood to happen in the first place?
I think the policies that we have been proposing are about fixing a problem, not promoting a problem. Okay?
But the numbers did quadruple.
And the numbers today,
watch.
because of what we have done, we have cut the flow of illegal immigration by half.
But should you
we
have
have
done
cut
that?
the
Should you
flow
have
of
done that?
fentanyl by half, but we need Congress to be able to act, to actually fix the problem.
You have accused Donald Trump of using racist tropes when it comes.
And by the end of the interview, you can see it in her face. Kamala Harris's face tells the entire story. It's a knockout blow from this reporter for sure. He points out to her face about 4 times and asks her the question over and over and over again, which just goes to show how much Kamala Harris can't answer a single question. There's been record border crossings during the Biden-Harris administration, and Kamala Harris says that she's on it, but she hasn't been. And the record is clear. The reporter points it out to her over and over again. And it's a knockout blow. It completely is, because it's clear that Kamala Harris has no solutions for the border. She says she does, but she doesn't. She doesn't know how to solve the problems going on at the U.S. border. When Biden and Harris are president, it's a clear signal to immigrants all around the world that the United States borders are open and that there is no process to bring these people in. And that's exactly what we need, a process to bring people in. But during Biden and Harris administration, it's been an unregulated process. And that's the entire problem. We have unregulated people coming into our borders. We don't know who's coming through. We don't know if we have criminals coming in or not because it's unregulated. People are just pouring in. We have too many people pouring in. They're pouring in by the millions into this country. And Joe Biden and Kamala Harris don't see that as a problem. For some reason, the deep state is allowing this to happen because if they didn't want it to happen, it wouldn't be happening. But for some reason it is. And my personal belief is that that might be for some labor concerns. But that's for another video. And speaking of other videos, if you want to see more from Wrestling with Politics, make sure you check out this video talking about Eric Adams' recent indictment. And make sure you check out this video talking about the VP debate between J.D. Vance and Tim Wolf. For now, you can subscribe to Wrestling with Politics and make sure to stay tuned for more content. Thank you for watching this video.